Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a hazy, wine-soaked tale from ancient Greece, where Dionysus, the god of revelry, accidentally stumbles into inventing theater. Picture yourself sprawled on a hillside under a starry sky, the air thick with the scent of crushed grapes and distant olive groves. Torches flicker, casting shadows that dance like they've got a mind of their own. Somewhere nearby, a lyre hums, and a crowd's laughter rises, slurred and wild. You're about to witness a divine screw-up that changes the world forever. And honestly, you probably won't survive this level of chaos without a nap halfway through. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're chilling tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in a dusty village square in ancient Attica, circa 6th century BCE, where the sun's dipping low, painting the horizon in shades of bruised purple. The locals are buzzing, their tunics stained with grape juice because it's harvest season and Dionysus is in town. Not literally, well maybe. This guy's the god of wine, ecstasy, and losing all sense of responsibility, so his vibe is everywhere. You spot a group of farmers raising clay cups, toasting to a good yield, their voices slurring as they chant his name. It's less organized religion and more happy hour gone feral. You can practically taste the tangy wine on the air, mixed with sweat and the faint musk of livestock. Dionysus doesn't show up in a chariot or a blaze of glory. He's more like that friend who crashes your party with a jug of something too strong and no plan. Now here's the kicker. These chants aren't just drunken noise. They're the seeds of something bigger. The farmers, half out of their minds, start improvising stories about Dionysus, how he was born from Zeus's thigh, weird flex, but okay, how he roamed the world spreading vines and madness. You notice one guy, bolder than the rest, stepping forward, his face flushed, doing a sloppy impression of the god himself. He's stumbling, slurring, but the crowd eats it up, hooting and clapping. This, right here, is where theater starts to flicker into existence. Historians peg this moment as the birth of the dithyramb, a wild choral hymn to Dionysus, performed with more enthusiasm than skill. Fact check, the dithyramb was a real thing, documented in ancient texts, a precursor to Greek tragedy. But the quirky bit? Some scholars say these early performers smeared their faces with wine lees, grape gunk, as makeshift makeup. Imagine the smell, fermented fruit and desperation. You're caught in the crowd now, jostled by elbows as the chanting grows louder. The bold guy's not just singing, he's acting, sort of. He's Dionysus, swaggering, tossing out lines like he's auditioning for a role no one's invented yet. The others back him up, their voices weaving a sloppy narrative. It's chaotic, but there's a spark, something raw and human. Historians still argue whether this was truly the first performance or just a bunch of drunks hyping each other up. Either way, you feel the energy shift. The crowd's not just watching, they're part of it, shouting back, egging him on. You're tempted to join in, but your modern sensibilities scream, this is how cults start. Let's pause for a second. You're probably thinking, wait, how does a god accidentally invent anything? Good question. Dionysus isn't exactly a planner. His whole deal is chaos, wine, dance, losing yourself in the moment. Unlike Athena, who'd probably have a PowerPoint for inventing wisdom, Dionysus just happens. And tonight, his influence is making these mortals do something new. You glance around, noticing the kids mimicking the adults, play-acting their own tiny Dionysus. Even the dogs seem hyped, barking at the noise. It's a mess, but it's alive. Here's a modern aside. Imagine this as the ancient equivalent of an open mic night gone viral. No stage, no script, just vibes. If Dionysus had a TikTok, he'd be trending with #theater by mistake. You chuckle, picturing him scrolling, confused by his own fame. But back to the square. The sun's gone now, and the torches are all that's left, casting everyone's faces in a warm, flickering glow. The bold guy is still at it, now pretending Dionysus is wrestling a lion. It's overdramatic, and half the crowd's laughing, but you can't look away. There's something magnetic about a story told live, flaws and all. Before you get too cozy, let's not forget this is Dionysus's show. The god's presence, real or imagined, has a dark edge. You hear whispers of his myths, how he drove kings mad, how his followers tore apart wild animals in frenzied worship. You're glad you're just a spectator, not a maenad with a taste for chaos. But for now, the village is joyful, the wine keeps flowing, and this accidental performance is planting roots. You're starting to see it. Theater isn't just about gods or stories. It's about you, the crowd, the shared thrill of pretending. And Dionysus, whether he meant it to or not, just lit the match.
You're still in that dusty attic village. The night air now cool against your skin, heavy with the scent of spilled wine and trampled grass. The torches flicker, their flames licking the darkness, and the crowd's energy hasn't died down. It's gotten wilder. You're swept along in the chaos, elbow to elbow with farmers and shepherds, all caught in the grip of Dionysus's revelry. The guy who was play-acting Dionysus last night, he's long gone, probably passed out under an olive tree. But the vibe he sparked is spreading like wildfire. You hear new voices rising, not just chanting, but weaving stories, their words slurring into something almost poetic. It's messy, raw, and you can't shake the feeling that you're watching history stumble into being. The crowd's moving now, spilling out of the square toward a nearby vineyard where the grapevines twist like gnarled fingers under the moonlight. You trudge along, your sandals kicking up dirt, and notice how the revelers aren't just drunk. They're possessed, in a way. Dionysus's influence is like a low hum in your bones, urging you to let go, to dance, to forget who you are. You resist, mostly because you'd rather not wake up tomorrow with a headache and a missing sandal. But the others, they're all in. Men, women, even a few kids are swaying, singing, some laughing so hard they trip over their own feet. It's less a party and more a fever dream, and you're right in the thick of it. Here's a solid fact. Dionysus's worship in ancient Greece often involved ecstatic rituals where followers lost themselves in dance and song, sometimes for days. These weren't your average church services. They were full-on, mind-altering experiences, often fueled by wine and raw emotion. But the quirky tidbit? Some ancient sources claim worshippers occasionally chewed ivy leaves, believing it'd get them closer to the god. Spoiler, ivy's mildly toxic, so they were probably just nauseous and calling it divine. You glance at a guy nearby, gnawing on a leaf like it's a secret mission, and you wince. Dude, stick to the wine. The vineyard's alive with noise now. Shouts, laughter, and those dithyrambs again, the choral hymns to Dionysus. You notice a group forming a loose circle, their voices blending into something almost deliberate. They're not just singing about the god anymore. They're telling a story about his adventures, like how he tricked pirates into jumping overboard or turned a king's daughters into lunatics. One guy steps forward, waving his arms like he's conducting an invisible orchestra, and the others follow his lead, their words syncing up. You're impressed, despite yourself. It's still sloppy, but there's a rhythm to it, a call and response that feels intentional. You're witnessing the dithyramb evolve right here into something that's not just worship, but performance. Historians still argue whether these vineyard sing-alongs were the true root of theater or just one piece of a bigger puzzle. Some say it was the city festivals, not rural raves, that formalized the stage. But standing here, you feel the raw power of this moment. The crowd's not just praising Dionysus, they're becoming him, or at least pretending to. You catch a woman nearby, her eyes glassy, mimicking the god's swagger as she belts out a line about his golden curls. The crowd roars, and you can't help but grin. It's like watching the world's first improv troupe, except everyone's hammered. Let's take a modern detour. Imagine this as a music festival where the headliner never shows, so the crowd just starts freestyling their own show. You'd probably post it online with a caption like, "When the vibes take over." If Dionysus had an X account, he'd be retweeting blurry clips of this chaos with a winking emoji. You chuckle, picturing him lounging on a cloud, scrolling through mortal madness. But back to the vineyard. The crowd's tightening, and the story's getting darker. The singers are now describing Dionysus's wrath, how he drove a city mad for rejecting him. The mood shifts, and you feel a chill, not just from the night air. You're starting to see the edges of something bigger. This isn't just about wine or worship. It's about mortals grappling with the divine, using stories to make sense of a god who's equal parts joy and terror. You notice a kid nearby, wide-eyed, clutching his mom's hand, whispering, "Is Dionysus really here?" You want to say, "Kid, it's just a bunch of adults drunk," but you're not sure. The god's presence feels too close, like a shadow you can't quite shake. You remember that ivy-chewing guy and hope he's okay. Probably not, but he's living his truth. The night's wearing on, and your legs ache from standing, but you can't look away. The singers are slowing now. Their voice is hoarse, but they're still going, driven by something you can't name. You realize this is what theater will become, a way to channel chaos into something shared, something that makes you feel alive. Dionysus didn't plan this, but his reckless energy did. You smirk, thinking of that poor guy from last night, the one who started it all by stumbling through his Dionysus impression. Wherever he is, he's got no idea what he's unleashed.
You're still deep in the attic night, the vineyard's chaos simmering around you like a pot left too long on the fire. The air's cooler now, sharp with the tang of crushed grapes and damp earth. And the crowd's energy has shifted, less frantic, more focused, like they're chasing something bigger than a buzz. You're standing near the edge of the circle, where the dithyramb singers are still at it, their voices hoarse but steady. Torches cast long shadows, making everyone look half divine, half deranged. You're about to witness a guy named Thespis, some local with a knack for stealing the spotlight, step up and change everything. Your sandals are caked with mud, and you're wondering if you'll ever get the smell of wine out of your tunic, but there's no leaving now. This is where it gets good. The singers are mid-story, chanting about Dionysus outwitting a band of titans, when Thespis, tall, wiry, with a grin that screams trouble, pushes through the crowd. You notice him right away. He's got that main character energy, like he's been waiting his whole life for this moment. He doesn't just join the chorus, he interrupts it, stepping into the center and raising a hand like he's about to drop the mic. The singers falter, confused, but the crowd leans in, sensing something new. Thespis starts speaking, not singing, pretending to be Dionysus himself, his voice loud and a little too dramatic, like he's overcompensating. "Mortals, behold your god," he booms, and you stifle a laugh. Bold move, buddy. Here's the historical anchor. Thespis is credited as the first actor in Western tradition around 534 BCE, when he supposedly stepped out of the chorus to perform solo at a Dionysian festival. That's why we call actors thespians today. Quirky tidbit: some ancient gossip claims he used a cart as a makeshift stage, wheeling it around like a proto-food truck for drama. You picture him now, maybe standing on a rickety wagon, arms flailing, and it's equal parts ridiculous and inspiring. Historians still argue whether Thespis was truly the first or just the guy who got the best PR. Either way, you're watching him own this moment, and the crowd's hooked. Thespis isn't just reciting lines, he's embodying Dionysus, strutting, tossing his head like he's got a divine glow. The chorus backs him up, their voices now a support act, answering his boasts with rhythmic chants. You feel the shift, like the stories come alive, not just a song, but a scene. The crowd's quieter now, less rowdy, more captivated. You catch a woman nearby whispering to her friend, "She's good," and you nod to yourself. He is good, in a hammy, over-the-top way. It's not polished, but it's real, and you can't look away. Your modern brain screams, "This is basically cosplay with extra steps," and you smirk, imagining Thespis at a Comic-Con, signing autographs as Dionysus's #1 fan. But let's not get too cozy. Dionysus's influence still hang heavy, and Thespis' performance isn't all fun and games. His Dionysus is charming, but dangerous, bragging about turning skeptics into vines or driving whole towns mad. You feel a prickle on your neck, remembering those Maenad stories from the village square, women tearing apart anything in their path, all for this god. Thespis leans into it, his voice dropping low as he describes Dionysus's wrath. The crowd's eating it up, but you notice a few nervous glances, like they're wondering if the god's actually watching. You're wondering too. That ivy-chewing guy from last night flashes through your mind, and you hope he's not out there starting a cult. The chorus picks up again, their voices weaving around Thespis' solo act, and you realize this is no longer just a drunken hymn. It's a dialogue, a back and forth that feels staged. Not in a modern Broadway sense, but in a raw, human way. You're standing on the edge of theater's birth, and it's thrilling, like catching the first spark of a fire. Thespis gestures wildly, pretending to pour wine from an invisible jug, and the crowd roars. You chuckle, thinking he probably had a few real jugs himself tonight. If this were X, you'd be live tweeting, "Local man invents acting, immediately overdoes it. Hashtag Thespis vibes." But here's the deeper cut. Thespis isn't just performing. He's giving the crowd a way to confront the divine without losing their minds. By pretending to be Dionysus, he's taming the god's chaos, turning it into something they can watch, laugh at, maybe even understand. You feel it too, the way his act makes the god seem less like a cosmic threat and more like a flawed, larger-than-life character. You're starting to get why this matters. Theater, even in its baby steps, is about holding a mirror to the gods and the mortals who worship them. The night's wearing thin, and your legs are screaming for a break, but you're glued to Thespis. He's winding down now, his Dionysus promising endless wine and revelry, and the chorus swells in approval. The crowd erupts, some cheering, some tossing flowers, okay, maybe weeds at his feet. You clap too, caught up in the moment. Thespis bows, a little wobbly, and you wonder if he knows what he started. Probably not. He's just a guy with a big ego and a bigger idea. But as you glance at the starry sky, you feel Dionysus's shadow lingering, amused, like he's saying, "Not bad, mortal." You're still in the vineyard. The night air now thick with the musk of sweat and crushed vines, the torches burning low, their flames sputtering like they're as tired as you are. The crowd's buzz from Thespis' performance hasn't faded. If anything, it's grown, like a fire fed fresh kindling. You're standing near a gnarled olive tree, its bark rough under your hand, trying to catch your breath after clapping for Thespis until your palms stung. The man himself has vanished, probably off to bask in his newfound fame, or more likely to find another jug of wine. But his spark lingers, and you notice the singers, those dithyramb folks, aren't done. They're regrouping, their voices rising again. But this time, it's different, darker, heavier. You're about to hear the first echoes of what the Greeks will call tragedy, and it's giving you chills, even with the warm night pressing in. The chorus forms a tighter circle, their faces lit by the dying torchlight, and you edge closer, curious. They're not singing about Dionysus's triumphs anymore, his pirate tricks or golden curls. Now it's about his pain, his birth from a mortal mother, Semele, who burned to ash when Zeus revealed his divine form. You feel the shift in the air, like the crowd's holding its breath. The singers' voices weave together, low and mournful, describing Dionysus's loneliness, a god caught between mortal and divine. You're surprised by how it hits you, like a punch you didn't see coming. The word they use, tragodia, floats through the crowd, and you catch it. Goat song. Weird name, sure, but it fits. There's something raw, almost animalistic in the way they're pouring out this grief. Here's the historical anchor. The term tragedy comes from trigodia, linked to Dionysian rituals around the 6th century BCE, possibly tied to goat sacrifices or prizes at early festivals. Quirky tidbit? Some scholars think the goat part refers to performers wearing goat skins, maybe to channel satyrs, those half-goat party animals who trailed Dionysus. You picture these singers, barefoot, draped in scratchy pelts, and you wince. Hope they wash those first. Historians still argue whether tragedy was always about sorrow, or if it just meant any intense story sung for the god. Standing here, though, you get it. This isn't just a song. It's a wound, laid bare for everyone to feel. You're drawn in now, standing shoulder to shoulder with a shepherd who smells faintly of wool and wine. The chorus sways, their voices rising and falling like waves, and you notice one singer stepping forward. Not like Thespis, not stealing the show, but adding a solo lament, speaking as Dionysus. "I am born of ash and thunder," he sings, and you swear you feel the ground hum. The crowd's quiet, almost reverent, and you realize this is what Thespis opened the door for. Not just acting, but storytelling that cuts deep. You're no theater nerd, but even you can tell this is special. It's like the first time you heard a song that made you cry for no reason, except this one's live, raw, and happening in front of you. Let's take a modern detour. Imagine stumbling across a street performer who's not just busking, but pouring their soul into a ballad that stops you cold. You'd probably film it, post it with some caption like, "Found art in the wild," #GoatSongVibes. If Dionysus were on X, he'd probably comment, "Not bad, but needs more wine." You smirk, picturing him lounging with a goblet, scrolling through mortal tributes. But back in the vineyard, the chorus is hitting its stride, and you're caught up again. They're describing Dionysus wandering, rejected by mortals who fear his power, and you feel a pang again. Ever been the odd one out? Yeah, this hits that nerve. The performance isn't perfect. One singer trips over a line, and another's voice cracks, but it doesn't matter. The flaws make it real. You notice a woman nearby, tears streaking her face, and you wonder what she's carrying that this song unlocked. That's the power here. Not polish, but truth. You're starting to see why the Greeks will build theaters for this, why they'll carve stone seats into hillsides. It's not just entertainment, it's a way to wrestle with the big stuff, loss, longing, the gods' fickle love. You remember Thespis' hammy Dionysus act and smile. He was the flash, but this chorus is the fire. There's a dark edge, though. Dionysus' story isn't all sad vibes. He's got a mean streak. The chorus shifts, their tone sharpening as they sing of his revenge, how he drove Pentheus, a king who mocked him, to ruin. You feel that prickle again, like the gods watching, maybe amused, maybe not. You glance at the shadows beyond the torches, half expecting to see the ivy-chewing guy from the other night, still at it. Hope he's okay, but honestly, he's probably face down in a ditch by now. You shake it off, focusing on the singers. They're winding down, their voices softening, but the weight of the story lingers, heavy as the night air. You're exhausted, your legs aching from standing, but you can't pull away. The crowd's still here, too. Some swaying, some whispering. I catch a kid mimicking the chorus's sway, like he's practicing for his own goat song someday. It's cute, but it reminds you, this isn't a one-off. What you're seeing, these songs, this grief, this raw human need to tell stories, it's taking root. Dionysus didn't mean to start this, but his chaos is shaping something lasting. You breathe deep, tasting the vineyard's dusty air, and feel it. Theater's not just born, it's growing.
You're no longer in the vineyard's wild embrace. The scene has shifted, and you're now trudging through the bustling streets of Athens. A few decades later, around the early 5th century BCE. The air hums with the scent of fresh-baked bread, olive oil, and the faint tang of sea salt from the nearby coast. Stone buildings loom, their whitewashed walls glowing under the midday sun, while merchants hawk their wares and philosophers bicker in the shade. You're weaving through a crowd, your sandals slapping against the cobblestones, heading toward a hillside where something big's happening. The chaotic vineyard nights of Dionysus's revels have evolved, and Athens is turning those raw, wine-soaked performances into something structured, something sacred. You're about to see the city embrace theater as a cornerstone of its soul, and it's giving you a thrill, like you're sneaking backstage at history's grandest show. The crowd's buzzing, a mix of farmers, artisans, and toga-clad elites, all streaming toward an open-air space carved into the slope of the Acropolis. It's not a proper theater yet, no marble seats or fancy stage, but it's a start, a natural amphitheater where the ground dips just right. You find a spot on the grass, wedged between a chatty potter and a kid munching figs, and take it all in. Temporary wooden benches are packed with spectators, and at the center, a flat area, the orchestra, holds a chorus already warming up, their voices chanting in honor of Dionysus. You recognize the rhythm from the vineyard days, those goat songs, but this feels bigger, more deliberate. The gods' chaotic gift is being tamed, shaped into a ritual that's as much about civic pride as divine worship. Here's the historical anchor. Athens formalized theater during the city Dionysia, a major festival starting around 334 BCE, where performances became competitions judged by the city's elite. Quirky tidbit? The festival wasn't just about plays. It included parades with giant phallic props to honor Dionysus's fertility vibes. You spot one in the distance, a wooden monstrosity carried by giggling youths, and you raise an eyebrow. Subtle, guys. Historians still argue whether the Dionysia was more about religion or politics, a way for Athens to flex its cultural muscle. Standing here, you think it's both, a party for the god and a mirror for the city's soul. The chorus is in full swing now, their tunics dyed bright with saffron and indigo, their voices weaving a tale of Dionysus's birth, same old Thigh of Zeus story, but polished, practiced. You notice a single performer, not Thespis, but someone like him, stepping out to speak as the god, his gestures grand but controlled. The crowd leans in, and you feel the weight of their attention, like they're not just watching, but participating. You're caught up too, your heart thumping as the performer describes Dionysus's wrath against doubters. It's not just a story, it's a reminder. Respect the gods, or else. You glance at the potter next to you, who's nodding like he's personally offended Dionysus before. Been there, buddy. Let's hit pause for a modern aside. This feels like the ancient version of a sold-out concert, except instead of screaming for a pop star, everyone's hyped for a god and some serious storytelling. If this were on X, you'd be posting a blurry pic of the chorus with "Front row at the Dionysia, no big deal. #theater glow up." Dionysus would probably reply with a glass of wine emoji and nothing else. You chuckle, picturing him chilling on Olympus, vaguely aware his party trick's now a citywide obsession. But back to the hillside, the performance is wrapping up and the crowd's roaring, tossing olive branches like they're at a rock show. You clap too, caught up in the energy. This isn't just about Dionysus anymore. It's about Athens, about mortals telling stories to understand themselves. You breathe deep, tasting the dusty air, and feel the city's pulse. Theater, it's not just alive, it's Athens' heartbeat.
You're still on that Athenian hillside, the city Dionysus in full swing, the late afternoon sun painting the crowd in shades of gold and amber. The air's thick with the scent of roasted barley and spilled wine, and your tunic starting to stick to your skin from the heat. The last performance has just ended, the chorus shuffling off to cheers, but the energy's far from fading. You're wedged between a chatty old man who smells like garlic and a woman braiding her daughter's hair, all of you buzzing with anticipation for the next act. The wooden benches are packed, and you're lucky to have snagged a patch of grass to sit on, though it's prickly and you're pretty sure there's an ant exploring your sandal. What's coming next isn't just another song or solo act. It's the moment theater gets personal, and you're about to slip on a mask and feel its strange, transformative power. Down in the orchestra, the flat circle where the chorus performs, you spot a group of men preparing, their movements deliberate. They're holding masks, wooden, painted, with exaggerated features, wide eyes, gaping mouths, some with wild curls carved to mimic Dionysus's divine locks. You watch as one performer, broad-shouldered and barefoot, lifts a mask to his face, tying it with a leather strap. The crowd hushes, and you feel a jolt, like the air's changed. He's not just a guy anymore. He's something else. God, mortal, or both. You're handed a mask too, by a passing festival helper, maybe as a prank or a dare. It's rough, painted with a crooked grin, and you hesitate before slipping it on. The woods cool against your cheeks, and suddenly the world feels bigger. You're still you, but you're not. Like you could say or do anything and blame it on the mask. Here's the historical anchor. Masks were central to Greek theater by the 5th century BCE, used to amplify emotions and allow actors to play multiple roles, often switching genders or divine identities. Quirky tidbit? Some masks had built-in megaphones, hollowed-out mouths to project voices across massive audiences. You imagine the carpenter who thought, let's make this smiley face a speaker, and you respect the hustle. Historians still argue whether masks were purely practical or held spiritual weight, maybe channeling the gods themselves. With this mask on, you're leaning toward the latter. It's eerie how it makes you feel half possessed.
You're standing now, mask on, swaying with the crowd as the chorus starts up again. Their song is about Dionysus's return from exile, triumphant but wounded, and the masked performer in the center moves like he's carrying the god's pain. You notice how the mask hides his real face, but amplifies every gesture. His raised hands seem huge, his slow turn feels like a storm brewing. You try mimicking him, raising your arms, and the woman next to you laughs, her own mask painted with a tragic frown. "You're no god," she teases, and you grin beneath the wood, feeling bold. "Give me a jug of wine and I'll get there," you quip back, earning a chuckle. The mask makes joking easier, like you're borrowing someone else's confidence. Let's hit a modern beat. This is like stepping into a VR game where you're suddenly a character, not just a player. If you posted this on X, you'd caption it, "Masked up at the Dionysus, channeling my inner chaos god, #theater mode." Dionysus would probably DM you a cryptic, "Keep the mask on, mortal," and you'd overthink it for days. Back on the hillside, though, the performance is pulling you in. The masked actor's voice booms. Yup, that megaphone mouth works, describing Dionysus's joy and rage. You feel it through your mask, like the emotions are seeping into you. It's not just watching, it's living the story, and you get why Athens is obsessed. The chorus weaves around the actor, their masks a mix of joy and sorrow, and you notice how the crowd mirrors them, some swaying, some whispering lines along. Your mask feels heavier now, not physically, but emotionally, like it's soaking up the story's weight. The actor speaks of Dionysus's mother, Semele, lost to divine fire, and you feel a pang, thinking of your own losses. That's the trick of the mask. It's not just a prop, it's a bridge between you and the story. You remember the Vineyard's raw goat songs and realize this is their evolution. Still wild, but focused, using masks to make the divine feel human. There's a shadow, though. Dionysus's stories always have teeth. The actor's tone shifts, describing the god's vengeance on those who deny him, and you shiver, your mask's grin feeling out of place. You think of that ivy-chewing guy from way back. Hope he's not here, masked up and causing trouble. Knowing him, he's probably leading a rogue chorus somewhere. You shake it off, focusing on the performance. The chorus is slowing, their voice is softening, and you lower your mask, feeling oddly exposed without it. The sun's sinking, painting the sky in purples, and your body's begging for a break, but you're hooked. The crowd's still here, masks on or off, caught in this shared spell. You realize theater's power isn't just in the stories, but in how it pulls you in, makes you feel bigger than yourself.
You're still on that Athenian hillside, the city Dionysia stretching into the evening, the sky now a deep indigo pricked with early stars. The air's cooled, carrying the scent of pine and the faint smoke of torches relit for the night's performances. Your legs are stiff from sitting on the prickly grass, and you're brushing ants off your sandal, but the crowd's energy keeps you glued. The masks from the last act are gone, replaced by a new buzz. A man named Aeschylus is about to take the stage, or rather, the orchestra. And you're hearing whispers that he's something special, not just a performer like Thespis, but a writer, crafting whole plays from the raw threads of Dionysus' chaos. You lean forward, the potter next to you muttering about Aeschylus' last show, and you're ready to see theater grow up, right here, right now. The orchestra's lit by flickering torchlight, and a chorus files in, their tunics simpler this time, dyed in earthy reds and browns. They're not just singing dithyrambs, they're telling a story, one Aeschylus wrote, about a mortal king cursed by the gods. You catch the name, Agamemnon, and feel a shiver.
This isn't Dionysus' story, but his vibe is all over it. Fate, hubris, divine wrath. A single actor, masked, steps forward, speaking as the king, his voice steady but heavy with dread. The chorus answers, their voices like a storm building, and you're pulled in like you're not just watching, but standing in the king's shadow, feeling his doom. Here's the historical anchor. Aeschylus, active around 490 to 458 BCE, is often called the father of Greek tragedy, credited with adding a second actor to create real dialogue, turning theater into true drama. Quirky tidbit? He reportedly died when an eagle dropped a tortoise on his bald head, mistaking it for a rock. You picture that and wince. Talk about a bad day. Historians still argue whether Aeschylus's innovations were his alone or built on lost pioneers. But watching this, you don't care about the debate. The dialogue, king versus chorus, mortal versus fate, is electric, and you're hooked. The actor's mask, painted with a furrowed brow, seems to sweat under the torchlight as he pleads with the chorus, who warn of bloodshed. You're struck by how real it feels, even through the mask's exaggeration. Aeschylus's words aren't just poetry, they're a knife, cutting into what it means to defy the gods. You glance at the crowd, their faces rapt, some clutching amulets like they're warding off the king's curse. You get it. Dionysus's festivals aren't just fun. They're a space to face the big questions, like why good people suffer. You think back to the Vineyard's goat songs, all raw emotion, and see how Aeschylus is weaving that passion into something sharper, more deliberate. Let's take a modern detour. This is like watching the first blockbuster with a real script, not just special effects. If you were on X, you'd post, "Aeschylus just dropped the mic on tragedy, #Dionysia Live." Dionysus would probably like your post, but comment, "Needs more wine." You smirk, imagining him critiquing from a cloud, unimpressed by mortal angst. Back in the orchestra, the chorus is chanting faster now, their words painting a storm at sea, a sacrifice gone wrong. You're so cut up you forget the ants, the stiff legs, the garlic-breathing potter. This is storytelling that grabs you by the soul. But there's a shadow here. Aeschylus's play isn't just about Agamemnon. It's about mortals wrestling with divine power, and Dionysus's influence lingers like a low hum. The chorus sings of a god's wrath, not named, but you know who they mean. And you feel that old prickle, like the gods watching, maybe smirking. You remember the Maenad stories, the ones about tearing kings apart, and wonder if Aeschylus is tempting fate by putting divine justice on stage. You hope that ivy chewing guy from the Vineyard isn't here, scribbling fan fiction about this. Knowing him, he's probably in the back preaching about tortoise omens. The play's building to a climax, the actor's voice cracking as he describes a vision of death. You're not breathing right, the crowd's not either. Aeschylus has taken the chaos of those drunken nights and turned it into something that makes you think, feel, fear. You realize this is theater's power, not just to entertain, but to hold up a mirror to mortality. The chorus slows, their voices dropping to a mournful hum, and you feel the weight of the story settle in your chest. You're starting to see why Athens will build grand theaters, why these plays will outlive their writers. The torches are burning low, and your body's screaming for a stretch, but you're locked in. The crowd's still here, some whispering about Aeschylus's genius, others just stunned. You think of Thespis, his cart stage swagger, and smile. He'd probably be jealous of this. Aeschylus isn't just performing, he's creating worlds. You breathe deep, the air sharp with smoke and pine, and feel the festival's pulse. Theater isn't just Athens' heartbeat now. It's starting to echo beyond the hillside, and you're right here for it.
You're still at the city Dionysia, the Athenian night now deep and cool, the stars above sharp as pinpricks in a velvet sky. The torches are fewer, their flames casting a soft glow over the hillside, and the crowd settled into a quieter buzz, though the energy's still electric. You're sprawled on the grass, your back aching from hours of sitting, the faint scent of crushed figs and olive oil lingering in the air. Aeschylus's heavy tragedy has left everyone a bit rattled, and you're rubbing your arms to shake off the chill of Agamemnon's doom. But the festival isn't all grim vibes. Something lighter's coming, and you hear laughter rippling through the crowd. You're about to meet the satyr plays, the cheeky, wine-fueled after-party of Greek theater, where Dionysus's rowdy side gets to shine, and you're ready for a break from all the divine wrath. Down in the orchestra, a new group shuffles in, their movements looser, almost clumsy, and you spot the difference right away. They're dressed as satyrs, those half-goat, half-human buddies of Dionysus, complete with fake tails and pointy ears. The crowd chuckles as one trips over his own hooves, probably not acting, and you grin, already liking the vibe. These aren't masked tragedians. They're here to poke fun, to mock the gods and mortals alike. The chorus kicks off with a bawdy song about Dionysus getting drunk and losing his sandals, and you laugh out loud, earning a nod from the potter next to you, who's clearly had a few cups himself. This is theater's wild side, and you're all in. Here's the historical anchor. Satyr plays were a standard part of the Dionysia by the 5th century BCE, performed after tragedies to lighten the mood, blending slapstick humor with mythological satire. Quirky tidbit, actors often wore exaggerated leather phalluses as part of their costumes because subtlety wasn't exactly Dionysus's brand. You spot one now, bouncing comically as a satyr leaps across the orchestra, and you shake your head. Athens never change. Historians still argue whether satyr plays were pure comedy or had deeper social commentary, maybe poking at Athens' stuffy elites. Watching this, you think it's both, a party and a middle finger to anyone taking life too seriously. The satyrs are in full swing, their song turning into a mock argument about who's Dionysus' best wingman. One, playing the god himself, stumbles around pretending to be blackout drunk, while another satyr steals his ivy crown and prances off. The crowd roars, and you're cracking up, picturing Dionysus watching from somewhere, torn between amusement and offense. The lead satyr launches into a speech, mocking Zeus for his endless affairs, and you wince through your laughter. Bold move, buddy. Hope the thunderbolts miss. You lean over to the potter and whisper, "Think Zeus is taking notes?" He snorts, "Hope not, or we're all toast." It's the kind of joke that feels dangerous but oh so right in the moment. Let's hit a modern beat. This is like the ancient equivalent of a late-night comedy sketch, tearing into celebrities and politicians with zero chill. If you posted this on X, you'd caption it, "Satyrs just roasted the entire pantheon. Hashtag Dionysia after hours." Dionysus would probably retweet with a goat emoji and a "Keep up, mortals." You chuckle, imagining him vibing to the chaos he accidentally sparked. Back in the orchestra, the satyrs are now chasing each other, pretending to hunt a sacred vine, and it's pure, silly joy.
You're starting to see why these plays matter. They're not just comic relief. They're a release, a way to laugh at the gods without getting smited. But there's an edge, even here. The satyr's jokes about Dionysus' drunkenness hit close to his myths, his power to drive mortals mad, to blur the line between fun and danger. You feel that prickle again, like the god's shadow is lingering, maybe chuckling, maybe not. The chorus sings of a mortal who mocked Dionysus and woke up as a toad, and you glance at the starry sky, half expecting a divine glare. You think of that ivy-chewing guy from the Vineyard Nights. Bet he'd love this. Probably out there somewhere, dressed as a satyr and causing a scene. Hope he's not stealing actual vines. The play's winding down, the satyrs collapsing in a fake drunken heap, their song fading into giggles. You're lighter now. The weight of Aeschylus's tragedy lifted, but you realize something. These plays, silly as they are, still carry Dionysus' spark. They let mortals laugh at the divine, but they're also a reminder the gods are watching and they don't always laugh back. You think back to Thespis, his bold first step, and see how far this has come. From drunken hymns to tragedies to this, a full-on festival of human wit and nerve. The crowd's clapping, some tossing bread crusts as applause, and you join in, your hands stinging. Your body's begging for sleep, the cool air making you drowsy, but you're still hooked. The hillside's alive, the festival's pulse strong, and you feel it. Theater's not just stories anymore. It's a conversation between mortals and gods. Serious one minute, ridiculous the next. You breathe deep, tasting the smoky air and grin. Dionysus' accident is turning into something wilder than he ever planned, and you're right here for it.
You're still perched on that Athenian hillside, the city Dionysia now cloaked in the deep night, the air crisp and laced with the scent of burning resin and distant sea salt. The stars are out in full force, like they're eavesdropping on the festival below, and the crowd's energy is a steady hum, despite the late hour. You're slumped against a rock, your tunic dusty and your stomach grumbling, those figs from earlier are long gone. The satyr play's laughter still lingers, but the mood's shifting again, gearing up for something grander. You're about to dive into the heart of the Dionysian festivals, where theater isn't just a show, but a sacred rite, tying Athens to its god in a way that's both awe-inspiring and a little unhinged. You rub your eyes, trying to stay sharp, because this is where Dionysus' accidental gift becomes a city's obsession. The orchestra glows under fresh torches, their flames dancing as a new chorus files in, their tunics shimmering with gold thread, a sign this is no small act. You hear murmurs about the great Dionysia, the festival's pinnacle, where Athens doesn't just honor Dionysus, but shows off its wealth, power, and devotion. The crowd's packed tighter now, elites in fine cloaks mingling with farmers, all united by the promise of something epic. A priest of Dionysus, draped in ivy and holding a staff topped with a pine cone, steps forward, raising his hands for silence. You feel a jolt, like the air's charged, and you realize this isn't just theater, it's worship, a bridge between mortals and the divine, and you're standing right on it. Here's the historical anchor. The great Dionysia, peaking around 500 to 432 BCE, was Athens' biggest festival, blending theater, religious rites, and civic pride, with plays performed over days to honor Dionysus. Quirky tidbit: winners of the play competitions got a goat as a prize, alive, not grilled, which you imagine was both an honor and a logistical nightmare. Historians still argue whether the festival was more about spiritual devotion or Athens flexing its cultural dominance over rival cities. Watching the priest's solemn gestures, you think it's both, a love letter to Dionysus and a billboard for Athenian swagger. The chorus begins, their voices rich and layered, singing of Dionysus' birth. Yep, that thigh of Zeus story again, but now it's majestic, almost operatic. Two actors, masked, join them. One is Dionysus,
the other a mortal king who doubts him. The dialogue crackles, the god's words sharp with divine arrogance, the king's laced with fear. You're pulled in, your heart thumping as the chorus warns of divine retribution. The crowd's rapt, some clutching offerings, small clay figurines, bunches of grapes, ready to lay at the altar later. You feel the weight of their belief, like Dionysus might actually show up, and you're not sure if that'd be awesome or terrifying. Probably both. Let's take a modern detour. This is like a mega festival. Think Coachella meets a religious revival, with theater as the main act. If you were on X, you'd post a shaky video of the chorus with "Great Dionysus hitting different," #gods and goats. Dionysus would probably reply with a cryptic, "Bring me a goat, mortal," and you'd laugh, then double-check your backyard. Back in the orchestra, the play's intensifying, the mortal king defying Dionysus, and you wince, knowing how this ends. Spoiler, not well. The chorus's song turns dark, describing Maenads tearing apart doubters, and you feel that familiar prickle, like the god's shadow is close, maybe sipping wine in the back row. The actors are killing it, their masks amplifying every word, every gesture. You notice how the crowd's not just watching, but living it, some whispering prayers, others shouting encouragement to the king, like they can change the story. That's the magic here. Theater makes the divine feel close, like you're arguing with Dionysus himself. You think back to the vineyard's drunken hymns, raw and messy, and see how they've grown into this, polished, sacred, but still wild at heart. You smirk, imagining Thespis watching, jealous of the production value. That ivy-chewing guy? He's probably out there waving a pinecone staff and claiming he's the priest's boss. Good luck, buddy. The play's building to a climax, the king's defiance crumbling as Dionysus's power looms. You're on edge, your fingers digging into the grass, and the crowd's the same, their breaths held. This isn't just entertainment, it's a ritual, a way for Athens to face its gods and its fears. You realize why these festivals matter. They're not just about Dionysus, but about community, about mortals finding meaning in chaos. The chorus slows, their voices softening, and you feel the story's weight settle, heavy, but cathartic. Your body is screaming for sleep, the night air cold against your skin, but you're locked in. The priest steps forward again, offering a libation of wine to Dionysus, and the crowd cheers, some tossing flowers. You clap too, your hands stinging, caught in the festival's pulse. Theater's not just art here, it's Athens' soul, a gift from a god who didn't even mean to give it. You breathe deep, tasting the smoky air, and feel the city's heartbeat, stronger than ever.
You're still on that Athenian hillside, the great Dionysia stretching into the witching hours, the night air now sharp and heavy with the scent of pine sap and cooling earth. The torches are burning low, their flickering light barely holding back the darkness, and the crowd's a mix of bleary-eyed devotion and stubborn excitement. You're slumped against that same rock, your tunic crusted with dust and your legs numb from sitting, but you're not going anywhere. The last play's echoes of divine wrath and mortal folly are still ringing in your ears, and you're catching whispers about something new. Women, usually barred from the spotlight, sneaking into the festival's shadows and shaping theater in ways no one talks about openly. You lean forward, ignoring the crick in your neck, because this is where the story gets juicy, like overhearing gossip the gods don't want you to know. The orchestra's quiet for now, the chorus off stage, probably chugging water and adjusting their masks. You scan the crowd, noticing women scattered among the men. Not many, but they're here. Some with veils, others bold and uncovered, their eyes glinting with the same fire as the torchlight. You overhear a man nearby grumbling that women shouldn't be at the Dionysia,
that it's men's work. But the woman next to him, her hair braided with ivy, shoots him a look that could curdle wine, and you stifle a grin. She's not just watching, she's invested, whispering to her friend about the last play's flaws, like she's got a better ending in mind. You're starting to suspect these women aren't just spectators. They're part of theater's secret pulse, and you're about to see how. Here's the historical anchor. While ancient Greek theater was male-dominated, with men playing all roles, evidence from vases and texts suggest women attended festivals like the Dionysia, possibly influencing plays through their presence or informal roles, like chorus trainers or patrons by the 5th century BCE. Quirky tidbit? Some scholars think women held their own Dionysian rituals, wilder than the public ones, in private groves. Think secret raves with extra ivy. Historians still argue whether women's influence was significant or just a footnote. But watching this crowd, you're betting on the former. These women aren't here by accident. They're claiming space in Dionysus's chaos. You spot a group of women near the edge of the hillside, their tunics plain, but their gestures lively, passing a clay jug and talking fast. One, older, with silver streaking her hair, seems to be leading the huddle, sketching something in the dirt, maybe a stage layout or a dance move. You edge closer, curious, and catch her saying, "The chorus dragged too long. They need more fire." You're impressed. She's critiquing like a pro, and the others nod, hanging on her words. You realize she might be one of those shadow figures, a woman who shapes theater from the sidelines, maybe teaching young performers or slipping ideas to a playwright husband. Dionysus, the god of breaking rules, would probably approve, and you smirk, picturing him toasting her from a cloud. Let's hit a modern beat. This feels like finding out the backstage crew at a concert runs the show better than the headliner. If you were on X, you'd post, "Women at the Dionysia stealing the script. #unsung heroes." Dionysus would likely reply with a winking emoji, and they always did. Back on the hillside, the orchestra's stirring again. A new chorus filing in, and you notice the women's group go quiet, their eyes locked on the performance. The play's about a woman defying a king, and you wonder if it's a coincidence or if someone like that silver-haired critic had a hand in it. The crowd's mixed, some men scoffing at the bold female character, but the women around you are leaning in, their faces fierce. The masked actor playing the woman moves with a grace that feels knowing, like he's channeling real women's fire, maybe from stories whispered by wives or sisters. You think of the ivy-braided woman's sharp look and realize theater's power isn't just in the actors, but in the lives it reflects. The chorus sings of the woman's courage, and you catch the silver-haired critic nodding, like she's saying, "That's more like it." You're starting to see how women, even in the shadows, are weaving their threads into Dionysus's gift, through whispers, critiques, or secret rituals in the woods. You chuckle, imagining that ivy-chewing guy from the vineyard trying to crash one of those women-only raves. He'd probably get chased off with a stick. There's a shadow, though. The play's heroine meets a grim end, punished for her defiance, and you feel the crowd's unease, especially among the women.
Dionysus's world isn't kind to rebels, even if he's one himself. And you sense that prickle again, like the gods watching, amused but unpredictable. The women near you don't flinch, though. They're used to navigating this world's edges. You think back to Thespis, his bold first act, and see how far theaters come, from drunken hymns to stories that challenge, even if they sting. The chorus slows, their voices fading, and you feel the weight of unspoken stories, the ones women carry but rarely get to tell. Your body's heavy, the night's chill seeping into your bones, but you're hooked. The crowd's still here, men and women alike, caught in theater's spell. You realize this festival, this art, belongs to everyone, even those pushed to the margins. You breathe deep, tasting the smoky air, and feel the hillsides pulse, alive with voices that won't stay silent, thanks to a god who never meant to start this fire.
You're still on that Athenian hillside, the great Dionysia now a marathon of devotion and drama, the night air thick with the scent of damp wool and smoldering torches. The stars are brighter, the crowd thinner but no less fervent. Their murmurs a soft buzz against the distant hoot of an owl. You're slumped against your trusty rock, your tunic a mess of dust and grass stains, and your eyelids are staging a revolt, but the festival's pulse keeps you tethered. The women's quiet influence from the last act lingers in your mind, their sharp critiques echoing like a secret chord. Now you're about to meet Sophocles, a playwright who's taking Aeschylus's groundwork and cranking up the human drama, making theater not just about gods, but about mortals wrestling with their own messy hearts. You shift, ignoring the ache in your back, because this is where tragedy gets personal. The orchestra's lit by a fresh batch of torches, their flames casting long shadows as a new chorus shuffles in, their tunics dyed a deep blue like the night itself. You hear the name Sophocles whispered, a young guy, well, younger than Aeschylus, with a knack for making crowds feel too much. The play is about a king named Oedipus, and you're already bracing for something heavy. Two masked actors step forward, one as Oedipus, proud but haunted, the other a prophet, spinning cryptic warnings. The chorus hums, their voices tight with dread, and you're sucked in, like you're standing in Thebes, not Athens, watching a man unravel his own fate. The air feels heavier, like the gods are leaning in, and you're not sure you're ready for this. Here's the historical anchor. Sophocles, active around 468 to 406 BCE, revolutionized Greek tragedy by adding a third actor, deepening dialogue and focusing on complex characters over divine plots, as seen in works like Oedipus Rex. Quirky tidbit? He was also a general and a priest. So the guy was basically a Renaissance man before that was a thing. Imagine him writing tragedies between battle plans and incense offerings. Historians still argue whether Sophocles' focus on human flaws made him more modern than Aeschylus, or just a different flavor of Dionysian chaos. Watching this, you're Team Sophocles. Oedipus's pride and panic feel like they're ripped from your own worst days. The masked Oedipus paces, his voice sharp as he demands answers about a plague ravaging Thebes. The prophet's warnings about a cursed king are vague but brutal, and the chorus amplifies the tension, singing of fate's unyielding grip. You're gripped, your fingers digging into the grass, because this isn't just a story, it's a mirror. Oedipus's stubbornness, his need to know, feels like every time you've pushed too far and regretted it. The crowd's quiet, some clutching their cloaks like they're warding off the plague themselves. You glance at the ivy-braided woman from earlier, her face taut, and wonder if she's seeing her own struggles in Oedipus. Theater is doing that now, making you feel exposed, and you're not sure if you love it or hate it. Let's hit a modern beat. This is like binge-watching a drama that hits too close to home,
leaving you staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. If you were on X, you'd post, "Sophocles just gut-punched me with Oedipus. Hashtag Dionysia feels." Dionysus would probably reply with a shrug emoji, like, "Mortals always overthinking." Back in the orchestra, the play's escalating, Oedipus piecing together the truth, his own guilt, and you're holding your breath, knowing the crash is coming. The chorus's song turns desperate, and you feel it in your chest, like you're the one doomed. You think of the Vineyard's raw goat songs and see how Sophocles has honed that emotion into a blade, cutting deeper than ever. There's a shadow, though. Dionysus' presence looms not in the play's plot, but in its vibe. Fate, chaos, the thin line between control and ruin. Oedipus's defiance feels like a dare to the gods, and you shiver, that old prickleback, like Dionysus is watching, maybe amused, maybe not. You remember the Maenad stories, their wild retribution, and wonder if Sophocles is tempting fate by putting human hubris on stage. That ivy-chewing guy from way back? He'd probably be sobbing, claiming Oedipus is his spirit animal. Hope he's not here, shouting prophecies at the chorus. The play's nearing its peak, Oedipus's voice breaking as he faces the unthinkable. You're not okay, and neither is the crowd. Their silence louder than any cheer. Theater's now taken theater beyond worship or comedy. It's a scalpel, exposing what makes mortals tick. You think of Thespis' cart stage bravado, Aeschylus' divine epics, and realize Sophocles is building on both, making theater a space to question everything: gods, fate, yourself. The chorus slows, their voice is a mournful whisper, and you feel the story's weight, heavy as the night air. Your body's begging for rest, but you're locked in, the festival's pulse your own. The torches flicker, and the crowd's still here, some wiping their eyes, others staring into the dark. You clap, your hands raw, caught in the spell. Theater's not just Athens' heartbeat now, it's a voice, speaking truths you didn't know you needed. You breathe deep, tasting the smoky air, and feel the hillside's quiet power, alive with stories that cut to the bone, all thanks to a god who never meant to start this fire.
You're still clinging to that Athenian hillside, the great Dionysia, now a relentless tide of stories and starlight, the night air sharp with the bite of dew and fading torch smoke. The crowd's dwindled to the diehards, their faces etched with exhaustion, but lit with a stubborn glow, like they're as hooked as you are. You're sprawled against your rock, your tunic a lost cause, dusty, wrinkled, and probably home to a few rogue ants. Sophocles' Oedipus left you rattled, its raw human ache still pulsing in your chest, but the festival's not done twisting the knife. Now you're about to meet Euripides, a playwright who doesn't just question the gods, he pokes them with a stick, and you're bracing for the fallout. You shift, trying to wake your numb legs, because this is where theater gets bold, maybe too bold, and you're right in the thick of it. The orchestra's dim, lit by a handful of stubborn torches as a new chorus shuffles in, their tunics a stark black, like they're mourning something before the play even starts. You catch the name Euripides, a younger guy with a reputation for stirring trouble, and the crowd's murmurs carry a mix of excitement and unease. The play's about Medea, a woman scorned by her hero husband, and you sense this won't be a feel-good tale. Two masked actors step forward, one as Medea, fierce and unyielding, the other as Jason, smug and clueless. The chorus hums, their voices low and jagged, and you're pulled into a world where gods feel distant and mortals are their own worst enemies. The air's tense, like a storm's brewing, and you're not sure you're ready for the lightning. Here's the historical anchor. Euripides, active around 455 to 406 BCE, pushed Greek tragedy into darker, more psychological territory, often portraying gods as flawed and humans as complex, as seen in Medea and the Bacchae. Quirky tidbit?
He was nicknamed the Atheist by some Athenians, not because he denied gods, but because his plays made them look petty. Imagine the gossip at the Agora. Historians still argue whether Euripides was a skeptic or just a master at exposing divine contradictions. Watching this, you're Team Trouble. Medea's rage feels too real, and Euripides is clearly daring the gods to take notes. Medea's masked actor stalks the orchestra, her voice a blade as she curses Jason's betrayal, and you're floored by how raw it is, like she's ripping open her soul. The chorus warns of her wrath, their song laced with dread, and you feel it in your gut, like you're the one she's glaring at. The crowd split. Some men hiss, uncomfortable with a woman so fierce, but others, especially the women from earlier, lean forward, their eyes blazing. You spot the ivy-braided critic, her face tight, nodding like Medea's speaking her truth. This isn't just theater, it's a reckoning, and you're caught in its grip, wondering how Euripides gets away with this. Let's hit a modern beat. This is like watching a gritty drama that sparks a Twitter war for being too real. If you were on X, you'd post, "Euripides just set the stage on fire with Medea, #Dionysia drama." Dionysus would probably reply with a cryptic, "She gets it," and you'd wonder if he's Team Medea. Back in the orchestra, the play's spiraling, Medea plotting revenge, and you're not breathing right, knowing where this is headed. Darker, darker, darkest. The chorus's song turns haunting, and you think of Sophocles' Oedipus, his personal tragedy, and see how Euripides is flipping the script. This isn't about fate, but choice, and it's terrifying. There's a shadow, always with Dionysus. Euripides' Medea doesn't name him, but his chaos is here, in her rage, her defiance, her willingness to burn everything down. You feel that prickle like the gods watching, maybe impressed, maybe annoyed. Euripides is playing with fire, making gods look small and mortals dangerously big. You remember the Maenads, their frenzied vengeance, and wonder if Medea is their echo, or if Euripides is warning Athens about its own darker impulses. That ivy-chewing guy from the vineyard? He'd probably be cheering Medea on, waving a torch and missing the point. Hope he's not here starting a riot. The play's peaking, Medea's voice breaking as she makes her unthinkable choice, and you're wrecked. The crowd silent, some women wiping their eyes. Euripides has taken theater beyond Sophocles' introspection into a space where you question everything: gods, heroes, morality. You think of Thespis' first bold step, Aeschylus' divine epics, and see Euripides building a new beast. Theater is rebellion. The chorus slows, their voice is a whisper of grief, and you feel the story's weight, heavy as the night. Your body's screaming for sleep, the cold seeping into your bones, but you're hooked, the festival's pulse your own. The torches are nearly out, the crowd sparse but riveted. You clap, your hands raw, caught in Euripides' spell. Theater isn't just a mirror now, it's a challenge, daring you to look at the gods in yourself without flinching. You breathe deep, tasting the damp air, and feel the hillside's quiet fire, alive with stories that don't just echo, they roar, all thanks to a god who never saw this coming.
You're still on that Athenian hillside. The great Dionysia, now a marathon that's outlasted the stars. The pre-dawn air cold and heavy with the scent of dew-soaked grass and dying embers. The torches are barely flickering, and the crowd's a stubborn remnant, their faces pale and drawn, but their eyes still burn with the festival's fire. You're slumped against your rock, your tunic a disaster, stained, torn, and probably hosting an ant colony by now. Euripides' Medea left you gutted, its raw defiance still clawing at your thoughts. But the festival's not done with you. Now you're about to see how theater's shaping Athens' mind, not just its heart. turning this chaotic gift of Dionysus into a tool that molds the city's moral and political soul. You rub your hands for warmth, ignoring the ache in your bones, because this is where the stakes get real, and you're too deep to back out now. The orchestra's lit by a single torch, its flame defiant as a new chorus shuffles in, their tunics plain, almost somber, like they're here to preach, not perform. You hear talk of a play about justice, not tied to any one myth, but wrestling with Athens itself, its laws, its wars, its pride. The crowd's quieter, sensing the shift. Even the ivy-braided woman from earlier is still, her eyes sharp. Two masked actors step forward, one a citizen, the other a judge. And their dialogue isn't about gods, but mortals, debating what's right when the city's at odds. The chorus hums, their voices steady, singing of balance, of hubris, of Athens' fragile glory. You're pulled in, like you're not just watching, but standing in the agora, voting on the city's fate. Here's the historical anchor. By the 5th century BCE, Greek theater, especially during the Dionysia, became a public forum where plays like those of Sophocles and Euripides tackled Athens' moral and political issues from war to democracy, shaping civic identity. Quirky tidbit: playwrights sometimes got fined or exiled if their works were deemed too subversive. Talk about cancel culture, ancient style. Historians still argue whether theater was a safety valve for Athens' tensions or a spark for rebellion. Watching this, you feel the tension. The play's questioning Athens' recent wars, and the crowd's uneasy, like they're being called out. The citizen actor pleads for peace, his voice raw, while the judge counters with talk of honor. And you're struck by how this hits home, not just for Athens, but for you, thinking of your own world's endless debates. The chorus warns of pride, their song weaving through the dialogue, and you notice the crowd leaning in, some nodding, others frowning. You spot a young man, maybe a soldier, his face tight, like the play's digging into his own scars. Theater's doing that now, holding up a mirror to Athens' soul, forcing it to face its choices. You think of Medea's rage, Oedipus's fall, and see how this play builds on them, turning personal pain into collective questions. You whisper to the potter next to you, "This one's trouble, huh?" He nods. Euripides taught them to bite. You grin, but it's uneasy. Let's hit a modern beat. This is like a viral TED Talk that sparks a firestorm, challenging everything you thought you knew. If you were on X, you'd post, "Theater just put Athens on trial, #Dionysia debate." Dionysus would probably reply with a smirking, "Mortals judging mortals. Cute." Back in the orchestra, the play's heating up, the citizen accusing the judge of blind loyalty, and you're holding your breath, feeling the crowd's pulse quicken. The chorus's song turns sharp, warning of a city that forgets its people, and you think of Athens' democracy, still young, still wobbly. This isn't just art, it's a warning, and you're not sure the city's ready to hear it. There's a shadow, as always. Dionysus' chaos runs through this play, not in gods or myths, but in the way it stirs doubt, makes you question authority, even the divine. You feel that prickle, like the gods watching, maybe amused, maybe itching to remind Athens who's boss. The play's not naming him, but his vibe's here, in the tension, the defiance, the risk of speaking truth. You remember the Maenads, their wild justice, and wonder if this play is tempting their kind of chaos. That ivy-chewing guy from the vineyard? He'd probably be heckling, claiming he's the real judge. Hope he's not here stirring up the crowd. The play's climax hits, the citizen and judge deadlocked, the chorus pleading for wisdom. You're wrecked, the crowd's silent, some clutching their cloaks like they're bracing for judgment. This is theater's power now, not just to move you, but to make you think, to challenge the city's core. You think of Thespis' first spark, Sophocles' introspection, and Euripides' rebellion, and see this as their legacy, a stage where Athens wrestles with itself. The chorus fades, their voices a whisper, and you feel the weight of the story, heavy as the dawn creeping in. Your body's screaming, the cold biting, but you're hooked, the festival's pulse, your own. The last torch sputters, the crowd sparse but rapt. You clap, your hands numb, caught in the spell. Theater is not just Athens' voice now, it's its conscience, daring to question everything, all thanks to a god who tripped into this legacy.
You're still on that Athenian hillside, the great Dionysia now teetering on the edge of dawn, the air raw with the chill of early morning and the faint tang of dew-soaked earth. The stars are fading, swallowed by a creeping gray light, and the crowd's a ragged handful, their faces gaunt, but eyes still flickering with the festival's stubborn magic. You're slumped against your rock, your tunic a battleground of dirt and sweat, your body screaming for mercy, every muscle aches, and you're pretty sure an ant's made a permanent home in your sandal. The last play's civic gut punch left you reeling, its questions about Athens' soul still buzzing in your head. Now you're about to catch Dionysus himself, not as a character, but as a shadowy spectator, smirking at the chaos he's unleashed. You force your eyes open, because this is where the god takes a bow, and you're not missing it. The orchestra's nearly dark, the last torch a faint glow, as a lone chorus creeps in, their tunics tattered, like they've been partying since the vineyard days. No actors this time, just the chorus, their voices soft but heavy, singing not of myths or mortals, but of Dionysus himself, the god who started it all. You feel a shift, like the air's thicker, and you swear you see a flicker in the shadows, maybe a trick of the light, maybe him. The crowd's hushed, sensing it too, their exhaustion giving way to something like awe. You're standing now, despite your legs' protests, because this feels like the festival's heart, a moment where the god and his accidental legacy collide. Here's the historical anchor. Dionysus was the patron of the Dionysia, and by the 5th century BCE, plays often ended with tributes to him, tying theater's art to its divine roots, as seen in festivals that blended worship with performance. Quirky tidbit: some priests claimed Dionysus attended the Dionysia in spirit, and offerings, wine, ivy, even goats, were left to keep him happy. Imagine the cleanup crew's face. Historians still argue whether these tributes were devout or just tradition, a way to hedge bets with a tricky god. Watching this chorus, you feel the devotion. Their song's a love letter, but it's got an edge, like they know Dionysus is as dangerous as he is generous. The chorus sways, their voices weaving a story of Dionysus's wanderings, born of fire, raised in shadows, spreading wine and madness. You're caught in the rhythm, your heart thumping as they describe his dual nature, joy and terror, giver of theater and breaker of minds. You glance at the crowd, some clutching ivy sprigs, others pouring wine onto the ground, their faces a mix of reverence and nerves. You feel it too, that prickle, stronger now, like the gods leaning in, his smirk almost tangible. You imagine him lounging in the shadows, cup in hand, watching his drunken accident become Athens' obsession. You whisper to the potter next to you, "Think he's here?" He shrugs. "Hope he's in a good mood." You both laugh, but it's uneasy. Let's hit a modern beat. This is like a concert's final encore, when the artist comes back for one last song and the crowd loses it. If you were on X, you'd post, "Dionysus just crashed the Dionysia, #God mode." He'd probably reply with a wine glass emoji and, "You're welcome, mortals." Back in the orchestra, the chorus's song turns reflective, praising the god for theater, his gift that lets mortals face their fears, laugh at their flaws, question their gods. You think of Medea's rage, Oedipus's fall,
the civic debates, and see how they all tie back to him, to this chaotic spark. The chorus's voices lift, and you feel a surge, like you're part of something bigger, something eternal. But there's always a shadow. The chorus shifts, their tone darkening as they sing of Dionysus's wrath, kings torn apart, cities driven mad. You shiver, the dawn's chill sinking deeper, and that prickle feels like a warning. You remember the Maenads, their frenzied vengeance, and wonder if this tribute is as much about appeasing the god as celebrating him. That ivy-chewing guy from the Vineyard Knights, he'd probably be front and center, pouring out a whole jug and shouting, "I knew it! Hope he's not here starting a one-man cult." The chorus's song softens, but the weight lingers, like Dionysus is saying, "Enjoy the show, but don't forget who I am." You're swaying now, caught in the chorus's rhythm, your body heavy but your mind alive. You think of Thespis' first bold step, Aeschylus's epics, Sophocles' introspection, Euripides' rebellion, and see how they all tie back to him, to this chaotic spark. The chorus's voices lift, and you feel a surge, like you're part of something bigger, something eternal. But there's always a shadow. The chorus shifts, their tone darkening as they sing of Dionysus's wrath. You shiver, the dawn's chill sinking deeper, and that prickle feels like a warning. You remember the Maenads, their frenzied vengeance, and wonder if this tribute is as much about appeasing the god as celebrating him. That ivy-chewing guy from the Vineyard Knights, he'd probably be front and center, pouring out a whole jug and shouting, "I knew it! Hope he's not here starting a one-man cult." The chorus's song softens, but the weight lingers, like Dionysus is saying, "Enjoy the show, but don't forget who I am." You're swaying now, caught in the chorus's rhythm, your body heavy but your mind alive. You think of Thespis' first bold step, Aeschylus's epics, Sophocles' introspection, Euripides' rebellion, and see how they all tie back to him, to this chaotic spark. The chorus's voices lift, and you feel a surge, like you're part of something bigger, something eternal. The chorus slows, their voices a whisper, and you feel the festival's pulse fading, like a heartbeat slowing. Your eyes are heavy, the dawn's light cold and gray, but you're still here, caught in the god's smirk. The crowd's silent, some bowing their heads, others staring into the dark. You clap, your hands numb, feeling the weight of it all. Theater is not just Athens' soul now, it's a legacy, born of chaos, that'll outlive you all. You breathe deep, tasting the dawn's damp air, and feel the hillside's quiet power, alive with a god who's still watching, half amused, forever untamed.
You're still on that Athenian hillside, the great Dionysus finally winding down as the dawn breaks, a pale pink light creeping over the horizon, softening the harsh edges of the night. The air's damp and cold, heavy with the scent of wet stone and fading torch smoke, and the crowd's a weary handful, their faces etched with exhaustion, but glowing with something like peace. You're slumped against your rock, your tunic a tattered relic, your body a chorus of aches, legs numb, eyes burning, and that ant in your sandal definitely plotting a coup. The tribute to Dionysus lingers in the air, his smirking presence still tingling in your bones, but now it's time to let the festival fade, to drift through theater's lasting echoes as your mind grows heavy, ready to slip into dreams. You lean back, the grass cool against your neck, and let the story carry you one last time. The orchestra's empty now, the last chorus gone, their voices a memory that hums in the quiet. You imagine them trudging home, tunics stained, still buzzing from the night's magic. The hillside feels alive though, steeped in the stories you've witnessed, from Thespis' bold first step to Euripides' daring jabs, from goat songs to civic debates. You close your eyes, picturing Dionysus, not as a god, but as a shadow, lounging somewhere beyond the dawn, his wine cup empty, his smirk softer now, like he's surprised his drunken stumble birthed something this grand. You feel the weight of it all, theater's power to make you laugh, cry, question, connect, and it's like a warm blanket settling over you, heavy but comforting. Here's the historical anchor. Greek theater, born in the 6th century BCE, became a cornerstone of Western culture, influencing drama, literature, and even politics, with festivals like the Dionysus shaping how stories are told for centuries. Quirky tidbit: the word theater comes from the Greek theatron, meaning seeing place, because it was about witnessing, not just hearing, the human soul laid bare. Historians still argue whether theater's legacy is more about art or social change, but lying here, you know it's both, a gift from Dionysus that let Athens and the world see itself clearly. You smile, thinking of that ivy-chewing guy, probably passed out somewhere, dreaming he's the god himself. Hope he's okay, but he's earned his rest. You open your eyes, the sky now streaked with gold, and notice the crowd thinning, some wrapping their cloaks tighter, others whispering about the plays as they head home. You think of the women's sharp critiques, the satyr's wild laughter, Sophocles' gut punch, and feel them weaving together, a tapestry of human chaos and beauty. Theater's not just Athens anymore. It's a spark that'll burn through Rome, the Renaissance, right up to your world, where stages still hold mirrors to the soul. You chuckle, imagining Dionysus on X, scrolling through posts about his festival, muttering, "Didn't sign up for this." But he did, accidentally, and you're grateful, even if your back's screaming and your sandals are a lost cause. The dawn's growing brighter, the air warmer, and you feel your thoughts slowing, like a river easing into a calm pool. You remember the vineyard's drunken hymns, raw and messy, and see how they grew into this, a legacy that's outlived its god, its city, its first wild nights. Your eyelids droop, the hillside's pulse fading into your own, and you let it carry you, soft as a lullaby. Theater's echoes are your dreams now, stories of gods and mortals, chaos and truth, all born from a god who tripped into greatness. You breathe deep, the air sweet with dawn, and feel the world slip away, gentle and quiet. You're drifting now, the hillside fading, its stones and stories softening into a haze. The dawn's light is a gentle glow, wrapping you in warmth, like a promise that the world's still turning, still telling its tales. You're safe here, your body heavy, your mind unspooling like a thread in the wind. Picture a quiet grove, ivy curling around ancient trees, a soft breeze carrying the hum of distant songs, goat songs maybe, or a chorus's whisper. Dionysus is far off, his smirk a memory, his chaos tamed for now. You don't need to hold on anymore. Let the stories settle. Let the festival's pulse fade. Your breath slows, each exhale pulling you deeper, into a place where the stage is empty, the masks are still, and all that's left is peace. Sleep's waiting, soft and sure, ready to carry you through the echoes of Athens, through the dreams of a god who didn't know what he started. Rest now, let go, and sink into the quiet, where every story ends in silence, sweet and endless.